I am California of the past.
I am California of the past.
I
I am California of the past.
My story today is about my grandfather, James Marshall. My favorite childhood story was the birth of our grandfather in his toddler years. His life was a miracle. His life began on a Christmas day in 1860. This experience developed him into a very strong, disciplined, dedicated, and successful man. This is our story. My grandmother, Nonestia, had become pregnant from one of the white ranchers who sold horses to the soldiers at Fort Gaston. The women lived together in the big house. They lived together in the junta. And her sister Sally, who was also pregnant, lived with them. On Christmas Day, 1860, some of the soldiers were drinking. And 2 soldiers left the fort to find a woman. Alton's water source was near the river, and the soldiers waited near the stream, and when Sally came to get water, they tried to rape her. She had her basket weaver's owl with her, and it was made from a foreleg of a deer, and she stabbed her attacker. Sally ran back to the village and reported what had happened. The others, when she told her friends and her family, the reality hit, realizing that the village was in grave danger. And the village members packed quickly what they needed. And that same night, Nonestia went into labor, and a very beautiful baby boy was born. Hoopa Sally was taken by canoe to Orleans, covered with deer hides. She made it safely, but she lost her baby on the trail. After waiting 3 days for Nonestia to recover, the men came to her and told her they were going to have to kill the baby because a baby's cry would give them all away. Nonestia appealed to them to allow her to try to keep him quiet, and if he did cry, she said they could kill him, and they moved out. 3 days later, after being stabbed, the soldier died. This began the 5-year rebellion. The soldiers marched into Alton and found it empty. And the soldiers were angry, and they rode on to Hostler Village and took revenge by killing 20 innocent people. Hostler Ranch, in retaliation, came and burned Alton Village and made medicine against them that they would never return. My father had written a list of all the places they traveled and camped. We loved to hear this. Dad would talk in a hushed tone when they went to Orleans, when they went up to Ball Hill, and how Nonestia would sing to her baby and stroke the back of the basket. She would sing, "Mum, mum, 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 mum," and she would stroke the back of the basket, and Dad would sing the song. And she taught grandfather to be silent, obedient, and she loved him dearly. They traveled first to Grouse Prairie, and then the leaders Big Jim and Handsome Billy and village men traveled to Orleans to get the Redcaps to come and help them. They traveled to Ball Hills, Redwood Creek, and many, many camps, always on the move, in tremendous weather, hot days. They met up with curly-headed Tom, who helped them. Nonestia was from Redwood Creek, and she had 7 siblings there and around, and he was a true warrior. He was a true helper. Alton was often in great need, and curly-headed Tom saw that. He would kill cattle from the ranches for them to eat. They attacked pack trains headed for Fort Gaston, Fort Anderson in Redwood Valley, and Fort Humboldt, and take their supplies. They hid 3.5 years. In springtime in 1864, they had their last warrior dance. They met in Wichbeck and signed the Peace and Friendship Treaty. Big Jim and Handsome Billy were 2 of the signers, of the only treaty that Hoopa had. And curly-headed Tom was caught and shot in his cell. Brother was, Selwyn Alton and Sally's brother was killed, shot on the trail. And Sally lived now in Requa and was safe. And Grandpa grew up to be a very successful rancher, father, and built a little cabin on his ranch for Nonestia to live in.